Is this thing on? I believe it is.
Yep.
All right. Welcome, everybody. Today, we have a talk from the esteemed Anna Spysz about Application Composer. And before I let you talk, just wanted to say that we used to work together at a company called Stackery. And my very first time meeting Anna was in a job interview. And she was a junior dev, really frightened to interview me. It's been really
terrified. It's gone way better ever since.
Yeah, it's been amazing to see your growth, and really excited to have you share all your knowledge about what you've been working on at AWS with us.
Thank you.
Awesome. So without further ado, I will leave the stage.
Okay. So today I'm going to be talking about Application Composer, and that is the app I work on in my day job at AWS. So my name is Anna Spysz. I am a front-end engineer, and my apologies for the clickbaity title. I altered it last minute, as it turns out while I was making the presentation, there were exactly 10 features I wanted to highlight. So there you go. So yeah, today we are going to be talking about 10 features of Application Composer that you might not be using. But before we get into that, I wanted to give a brief overview of Application Composer for people who may not have been using it at all. So here's a brief overview of AWS Application Composer. It's a visual builder that allows you to visually compose infrastructure as code templates in the browser or VSC. It's a front-end only app. That's a little bit of behind-the-scenes knowledge. So it's only client-side and uses an HTML canvas and the File System Access API for any fellow front-end nerds. We launched at reInvent 2022 in the AWS console. And when we launched, we were specifically geared towards serverless. So we originally supported only 13 serverless resources in our initial preview. But then in 2023, we expanded to support all 1,200 plus CloudFormation resources. And then at last year's reInvent, we launched in the AWS Toolkit extension for VS Code. And finally, last month, we also launched in the CloudFormation console. So that's a brief overview of what Application Composer is, but it's also much easier to show you what it is. So with that, it's demo time. And just kidding, I pre-recorded demos because I have been burnt by the gods of demos one too many times. So first, I'm going to go over some basic features. For those of you who have used App Composer, you're probably familiar with this. So we have demo mode, which lets you tour the canvas and gives you some basic resources already on the canvas and in the template. App Composer lets you drag and drop resources. It lets you edit the preferences of those resources and settings all within the canvas. It lets you connect resources in the canvas by connecting lines. And in this case, we're adding some Cognito resources to our existing app. And we are also adding a function to an existing group. So that's something you can do in App Composer. You can group resources. You can change the names of your groups if you're using them, or you can ungroup resources as you see fit. So that's the basic functionality. We also let you export your template as we let you export an image of your architecture so you can use that as a PNG, or export your template file so you can save it, check it into Git, export it, etc. So that's pretty basic functionality for creating new templates. You can also import existing templates. So this is your existing AWS SAM or CloudFormation template that you may already have from a project. You can open it, write an app composer, and we will visualize it. And if you have an open template, you can zoom in, get more details on your resources, rearrange them, zoom out to get more of a overview. And in the case of a pretty big template like this one, what you can do is actually go through a list of your resources where you can select different ones based on their name. So you can also use the find feature of your browser, and it lets you more quickly find a resource you're looking for in a very large template, like in the example. So that's just day-to-day functionality. We also allow you to search for resources. So if you're looking for Lambda, you can use the serverless function, or you can use AWS Lambda function. You can add other resources such as IAM roles or any of the other 1,200 resources. And for our standard CloudFormation resources, you can edit their YAML or JSON directly. Finally, any changes you make are visible in the template view. So we have the canvas view and the template view. You can view it in YAML or JSON, whatever you prefer. And finally, you can take a template from anywhere. So in this case, I'm using a serverless LAMP template, getting it from GitHub, copying the template file, and just going to the template editor, pasting it in, and I've got that template visualized. So again, this is probably the most common functionality that our users use App Composer for today. So yeah, that's an overview of probably the features you do know about if you've already used App Composer. And now I'm going to get into the features you may not know about. And I'm going to start with App Composer in the AWS console. So feature number 1, import from Lambda. So last year we launched this feature where if you have an existing Lambda function, say you've just built a prototype or playing around, it works, you want to do something more with it. You can now click to export it to Application Composer. And what we do is take that function along with any resources it's using, create an infrastructure as code template for that function, and then let you add additional resources. So you have the function files already. Now you have IAC for any additional resources you might need for your serverless application, because most apps are probably more than just a single Lambda function. Next feature is you can create from CloudFormation, and this is pretty new. So if you're in the CloudFormation console, you can go to Create a Stack and click Build from Application Composer. And if you click Create an Application Composer, this puts you in what we call CloudFormation console mode. And this is a special mode of App Composer that has some additional features as well as some limitations. And one of the additional features it has is letting you create whatever template you've composed in Composer and bring it back into CloudFormation. So when you click Create Template here, you're actually we're saving that template, putting in your S3 bucket, taking it over to CloudFormation, and letting you go through the Create Stack wizard. So you can then name your stack, and then continue with the deploy process as you would for any stack created in CloudFormation. And you can see here we're deploying, and the two SQS queues we just added visually in App Composer were created in and deployed via CloudFormation. Next feature is updating an existing CloudFormation stack. So say you have a deployed stack, you want to update. So when you click update, you can actually edit it in Application Composer. And once again, you have most of the functionalities of App Composer. You can remove a resource, you can add an additional resource. In this case, we're going to add a code build project for our app. This, if anybody saw my and Danielle's presentation from a while back, this was a little pet project we built called CodeCupid. So we're going to update that stack, and again, going through the typical CloudFormation flow where we acknowledge that CloudFormation's creating some resources for us, and we submit, and you can see now the stack is being updated, and we never had to leave the console or write any IAC, so that's pretty cool. Next feature, and this one just dropped, like literally this week. It's called template validation, and it's something our customers had been asking us for a while. So say I got a template from some shady website somewhere, right? I don't know if it's valid or not. I can actually click the validate button and see if there's any obvious errors in the YAML. I can also do inline validation. So if I'm building out a template using standard resources, I can then check the types, see if they're correctly filled out. So here we have some placeholders for strings. So if we replace them with actual strings, we can see that the little yellow squigglies now go away, and the CloudFormation gods are happy. And we like making the CloudFormation gods happy. So we will fill out strings for the variables we need. We can also use the autocomplete. So here we're referencing an existing bucket that we dropped into our template, and it was auto-completed for us, and you can see the reference now, and then we can continue to update that template. Another feature, you can visualize almost anything from S3. So if you're creating a stack in CloudFormation and you use a sample template, well, those templates are taken from public S3 buckets. Anybody can use these. They're great ways to get started if you're working on more traditional app that's using EC2. I think that's most of the samples there. So you can see you get all of this CloudFormation for free just using a sample template, and then you can deploy it and you have your stack. But say you have a template in your own S3 bucket. So in this case, I'm going to grab the object URL from my S3 bucket, and I'm going to paste it in the template URL query param and hit enter. And now we can visualize that template. So you can do this for any template you have permission to access. So public templates or templates in your own S3 bucket. That's a pretty cool feature. Next feature, visualize a deployed template. So again, in the CloudFormation console, if you go to your various outputs, there's a template tab. And now there is a button that allows you to view that template in App Composer. So that's just a view of your deployed template as it is. You can update it and it gets you into that update flow, but sometimes you just want to see what you've deployed. You can also copy the contents of the process template. And this is the case for AWS SAM templates, for example. So that was a SAM template. This is that same template processed into pure CloudFormation, and you can see how that's visualized differently. So that's a fun little party trick you can show at your next very interesting party. Next feature, Step Functions Workflow Studio. So we heard that you like visualizers. So we decided to put a visualizer in our visualizer. And this is for the fans of Step Functions Workflow Studio, which is a wonderful app that you can now access directly in AWS App Composer. So if you have a Step Functions resource, you can then open Workflow Studio mode. You can edit your existing state machine. So here I added a Lambda invoke step. I can save, and then when I'm back in App Composer, that new step is in there, and I can actually connect it to a function and see that my template got updated in that way. And what's cool then is if you you make those updates, they're visualized in the ASL. And if you go back into Workflow Studio, that update is now there and you can continue working on your template. All right. Final feature of the console, local sync mode. So this is one that we launched with, but a lot of people still don't know about. So every flow I've shown so far has just been within the console itself. But in this flow, I'm going to activate local sync. And what that does is it uses the File System Access API to communicate with a directory on your file system. And you can see as soon as I initialize that directory in App Composer, we got a template.yaml file that I'm showing in VS Code. And now as we make edits in the browser, we're actually seeing those edits be reflected in our VS Code, in our template file. So, and this doesn't just work for the template file. If you add functions to App Composer and you're in local sync mode, we actually give you some scaffolding. And it's just simple files to get started. And in this case, initially started in JavaScript, but I decided, you know what, I'm going to write Python for this app I'm building. And as soon as I changed the runtime to Python for one function, every other function after that was Python now. So I have 4 nice functions with starter code in there so I can get going on those. And the changes you make are also bidirectional. So here I'm going to make an update to the template, and it's now reflected in the canvas. I just deleted that function. So I'm going to add that back because I actually did want it in there. And you can see that the runtime is still Python. So it remembers what runtime we want to use. And that's the extent of the features for the console. And so I'm going to go into VS Code since we're already there. And so we launched in VS Code as part of the AWS Toolkit last reInvent. And that itself, I feel like, is a feature a lot of people don't know about. So I'm going to talk about that first. So you can just completely close out your console, your browser tab here, and we're going to just use VS Code. And here I'm going to go into my template.yaml, template.json file. And in the top right corner, there's a App Composer button if you have the AWS Toolkit installed. And what you can do is, just like in the previous example, we can do a side-by-side view if you have a wide screen, where you can see App Composer now in VS Code, directly manipulating your template file, just like we did when it was in local sync mode. But this time you don't need to be logged into the console, you don't need a browser open, and you can just start right in your VS Code window. So here we're going to add another route, add another function, because why not? They're free, right? Serverless, right? No, I can't actually say that. Forget I said that. So we're gonna add another function connected to our DynamoDB, and we've got, we're feeling pretty good about our app. So now what? Well, there's a sync button in the IDE that is not available in the console. And what that button does is actually activate the SAM sync command from the AWS SAM CLI, which you will need installed in your VS Code for it to work. But once you do have that, you can choose a region, you can name your stack, you can choose an S3 bucket to put your function code in, and then you hit deploy, and that's SAM deploying your stack for you. And if you go into the console because you're like, whoa, this is no way this is happening, this is way too easy and cool, you can see we are deploying, we're actively updating that stack with our new features. So cool. And feature 10, so this feature is kind of hidden too, but it's one of my favorites. So if you use one of our 14 enhanced components, these are mostly serverless resources. They come with a lot of defaults and functionality compared to our CloudFormation resources or standard resources, where if you add one of those to the canvas, you do get some types in there, some properties, and some hints as what properties you should use. And you can also directly link out to the docs, which is really handy, but it's not a ton. Like, you might not be familiar with that resource and you might not know what it can do, but that's why we have that generate button. And what it does is it uses QDeveloper to give you generated suggestions of what that resource may look like out in the wild. And you can regenerate, you can choose from multiple suggestions, and then you can accept them, and then they're in your template. And sometimes they're usable codes, sometimes it's something you can build on. But it just gives you an idea of what to expect for a given resource. So I think that's a pretty cool feature. And that is the last of the 10 features you may not be using in App Composer. So with that, we'll go on to questions.
Taking a look right now. I have a question, actually, regarding the thing that you just showed with the queue. Super cool. Do I have to log in order to get those suggestions?
You do, yes. So this uses, this is a QDeveloper feature, and that just went GA, I think, a couple of days ago. And yeah, you need a builder ID, which is different from, say, your IAM credentials that you use to deploy. But you can sign up with AWS to get a builder ID and then log in with that, and then you're good to go.
Very cool. And then one other question. This is more of like an opinion question. I won't take this as like, this is what AWS says. In your opinion, who would you say is the target audience for Application Composer?
Sure. So our ideal target audience is a developer at any stage of their journey into using infrastructure as code. So this could be a beginner. This could be a junior dev that's just getting started. They might not even be a junior dev. They might just be new to using IAC. And we feel like as a learning tool, App Composer is super powerful because, so say you're new, you just join a team, they use AWS SAM or CloudFormation, they have this huge existing application that you're going to work on, and you're like, what is going on in there? I don't understand this. What are these resources? You can visualize that application and be like, oh, what is a Lambda function? I'm going to find out more about this. Or oh, I see this connection between these resources. This is adding read-write permissions, for example, to Dynamo table. Good to know. So like if something's going wrong or I might not have the right permissions, this is where this is the part of the template I can start investigating. So that's like the beginner use case. But for more advanced users, like if you know what you're doing with CloudFormation, that's awesome. But like, who hurt you? Like, do you really want to be writing YAML when you can just drag and drop? Like, like even in the interest of accelerating your day-to-day process, like it is much faster to drag and drop and then update certain properties or add them or whatever than writing everything from scratch, having to double check yourself, maybe not having the right linters in place, etc. So like we aim to help the advanced user use CloudFormation faster and better in a more safe way. And then we aim to help the beginner user onboard onto infrastructure as code and just help them visualize what they're doing so maybe they can understand it better.
Awesome. Yeah, it looks like we have a few more questions here. Andres has one. Is there a way to specify the format it uses for the generated stuff, like 2 spaces versus 4 space, for example?
Oh man, so not a tabs guy, I see. So if you're using it in VS Code, you absolutely can. The editor within the browser, we're using Monaco, and it has just some defaults that we decided on. We may add the ability to change this in the future, but at the moment that's not an option. But in VS Code, you can set up your VS Code to your heart's content. So you absolutely can. And you can also convert between YAML and JSON in the browser too. So if you have an existing template you just want to convert, you can do that in the browser.
Yeah, super cool. All right. We got a question from Omid here. Does it create the necessary policies and rules behind defining the integrations between the services? It's a good question.
Yeah, that's a great question. So for our 14 enhanced resources, yes. So that is kind of the enhanced part. These are some of the like most used serverless specific resources. And when you drag a line, say from a Lambda to a DynamoDB table, it gives you read-write permissions, for example. So we do create roles in the background for you. So that's part of the power of AWS SAM as well. We're doing some behind the scenes work for you using SAM. And then, yeah, when you connect resources, a lot of times we're adding the necessary permissions or environment variables you might need.
Very cool. All right. Alan says SAM is better than CDK, and there's a lot of arguments here in the chat too.
I am staying out of that fight. For me, honestly, like I like writing business logic. I don't like writing infrastructure code. So like whether it's SAM or CDK, I don't want to write either. I just want to like drag and drop and have it done for me. So that's my take on that argument.
Yeah, I agree. It's better to focus on like what you're actually building rather than how you're building it. And yeah, my opinion is you should use an infrastructure as code tool.
Yeah. And sometimes like you don't have a choice. You onboard onto a team and they're a CDK shop or they're a CloudFormation or a Terraform shop, whatever. Like that's, you make the best of what you're given.
Except for JSON. People that write JSON templates, that's wild. Anyway, no disrespect to the JSON fans out there, but that feels like a lot of extra work to me. I would much prefer YAML, but anyway, I digress. All right, we got another good question from Andres. How do you know which ones are the enhanced resources? I might have missed this. Is it a separate list in App Composer?
Yep, it is a separate list. So we have the top 14 resources are the enhanced, and then underneath are the standard 1200. So they change every week because CloudFormation changes every week. Yeah.
And I did see another question too from Ziad. Yeah, there we go. Any plans to support Terraform?
That's above my pay grade, unfortunately. If your Terraform has been converted to CloudFormation, you can visualize that. Same actually with CDK after running CDK synth, but it will look funky because it's not optimized for that.
Yeah, I haven't tried it with Terraform, but yeah, we use CDK at my day job, and you can tell. My theory is it was designed more for just people writing CloudFormation templates rather than CDK auto generates a lot of weird names, and it looks kind of weird in the canvas.
Yeah. Yep.
All right. I think, yeah, unless there's any more questions, I think should be good to wrap up here. Awesome. Yeah. It's been great having you, Anna. Thank you for joining us. And Anna's also in the Discord as well. So if any of you have any follow-up questions, I'm giving you permission to bother her.
Please do. It's still my lunch break for another 28 minutes.
She also knows a lot about front-end engineering too.
I do. I've become a front-end nerd the last few years over at AWS. So yeah.
But yeah, I think other announcements that I have is later this week on Thursday, we have Jeremy Daly. That's going to be at 11 Pacific time, talking about self-provisioning serverless with Amped. So kind of similar to the drag and drop, but like, just the idea of I don't want to have to think about writing my IAC. So I love that. That's going to be really great. And then Friday, we have Andres and Alan. It's called Plundering for Clips. It's a pirate-themed live stream about using LangChain and Claude 3 to find the best clips from their past live streams. So that should be good.
Very cool. I love that use case.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, we'd love to have you all if you want to join our other events. Otherwise, we always record them. So everyone's always welcome. And thanks everyone for coming today. Thank you again, Anna. And I will sign off now. So